Hey folks, it's Lindsay Huddleston back in the building again, another SPS Mental Health Moment. And I always give the proper introduction and give you a backstory, but man, I don't get to do this because there's not anybody I can have on here that I can call a big homie. That's a term that is very endearing. That's not a term I pass around. I even had people on my birthday talking about, what's up, little bro? And I'm like, nah, you can't really use that one on me because you all know my only other brother, Sean Huddleston, your contemporary, he
yes.
song. But
yes.
big homie, Dan Ringo in the building.
Yes.
I appreciate you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Great to be here.
Okay, but before we get into where you are right now, what you're doing, I want to go back and just give the backstory. Freshman year, Henry Ford High School, west side of Detroit, 7 Mile Evergreen, 20,000 Evergreen. I just remember being in that cafeteria, and we all know the cafeteria is like Vietnam with landmines, man.
Exactly.
You got to be strategic how you navigate it, but just like in Vietnam or any other war zone, there's a safe place you can go. There's a place where it's almost like an embassy. How about that?
Exactly. I like that.
There's an embassy, right?
I like that.
I was able to get to the embassy, and I was able to get diplomatic immunity. I was able to follow Dan Ringo. That brother saw something in me, took me in, brought me over to the cool kids table. And ever since then, even those, 25, 30 years looking back, man.
30 plus.
30 plus. So Dan, talk about who you are, what you have going on, and if you can take me back to Henry Ford High School circa 1989-90, because I even know when hearing you doing some interviews about one of your books, you talked about, man, you had a lot of stuff going on back then. So let's, with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Ringo, great mentor of mine, great friend of mine, and a great asset to any community he's in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, brother.
Well, listen, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And I'll get right to it. Again, as we've met over 30 plus years ago, I met you. And again, as you said, man, you were special. Even then when we would, be at the basketball courts or whether it was in the lunchroom at Henry Ford High School. But the one thing that many people didn't know back then when we would be holding court and cracking jokes and all of those things is that I was one of the biggest underachievers and a person that was failing miserably academically, not because I didn't have the ability, it's just because I didn't apply myself. And I didn't really see or tie in the value of education to success in the future. I was always a thinker, and really if I had the exposure or had the initiative or even the thought that I could apply the same drive, because I've always had a job. That's the thing. When I tell my story, I say, you know what, it's not as all gloom and doom, because despite failing academically and being a poor student, I always kept a job. So I had a great work ethic to a certain degree. And so even with that being said, I was not doing well in school. I was, not in class a lot. That's why you probably would see me on multiple lunch periods.
Yeah, like how you back in
multiple study periods. So that's why I was always there. But briefly after leaving school, I became a teenage father. And then another year or so after that, I went into the United States Air Force. And that's when I started to get my footing. I really wanted to start to make a success of my life. And I started to be tying in what my daily steps was to future success. I started to make the connection because I had, for the first time in my young adult life, I had accomplished something. And that was, number one, graduating basic training, starting basic training, graduating basic training, and feeling very proud to do that. And then the credits that came along with that, and then seeing that I could apply this towards a legitimate associate's degree. And that started to spark my ability that, hey, listen, you messed up 4 years of your life in high school. Time is moving forward. How are you going to continue to build on what you have now? And so just continued that path. And just to give the listeners a Reader's Digest, successfully, honorably discharged from the United States Air Force, used that to go get my GI Bill, complete my bachelor's degree at Wayne State, went on to law school. During law school, had a lot of amazing job opportunities and executive positions that I continue to move up the ladder, where I eventually was a COO of a company, a SVP of a company, and then started my own company in 2016. I ran that to 2019. And then I branched off from that and started smaller ventures that I'm currently doing now. And one of which I'm also on the staff of the city of Pontiac as a director of public works. But we started Ringo-Economics last year, which is apparel as well as literature. And then Opus, which is a facilities management consulting firm where we consult with larger facilities management companies and we help them win facilities management contracts. And so we have a few under our belt as of last year that we're currently managing.
Outstanding, amazing. What I want to do, Dan, I want to go back over your outstanding introduction, and I want to do like Nas does when he raps a little bit. He paints a graphic picture. So
yes.
you mentioned the basketball court. I'm glad you did because that was the precursor to our relationship.
Right.
What street would that have been on, like Edinburgh or something like that?
Well, you know what? The
it wasn't on the street. It was off. It was
right.
behind Henry Ford.
It was off Trojan, but Stahalin and I would say maybe Granville was the park. Those are the streets that the park lie between.
And the statement I want to make is I'm a West Sider, but I was still coming into a different hood.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
And I never forget looking at the backboard and saying, how them hoes get in the backboard? My man was like, them gunshots.
Yes, those gunshots. Yeah,
gunshots. But that was my negativity.
Wow.
You feel me though? But like,
I forgot about that. But
I think it's important that we set that tone because that was the nature of the community where we in. But look at what you did. You even said that being a acknowledged underachiever, you still use tools along the way. United States Air Force. I use the Marine Corps, and I look at you like Joseph Cook, my brother, Sean Huddleston.
Yes, good brothers.
Yeah, as Black men, still took advantage of the resources that the American military had for whatever we could to get there. And I just kind of wanted to just paint that picture from whence we came to how even throughout all that, being a teenage father, you were able to overcome that. So tell me, Dan, and even with the great things you talk about with Ringo-Economics, we'll get into that, no doubt. Mm-hmm. We'll share some of your images of what you have. But Dan, why is it that more young people don't take advantage of some of the low-hanging fruit that's out there to get to where they want to go? And I don't want to sound like some ultra-conservative person that's out of touch when I say that, but you and I did it. Why don't more do it?
Well, number one, I'm very harsh, and I'm a very harsh critic of the education system, especially for inner city districts across the nation. The issues and the challenges that African Americans or Blacks face in these districts are very unique and very distinct from any other community, regardless of economic level. And I think the way in which we address that and encourage children from a very early age has to be different to spark a knowledge of self in them so they see themselves differently and then want to achieve differently. I was probably, again, if some of my teachers were here today, I was extremely militant. That's what people don't know. I was extremely militant back at 14, 15 years old with no knowledge of why, but I just felt Boogie Down Productions music. I felt Public Enemy's music. And I was, the thing about, not achieving academically and then emphasizing that it wasn't because I couldn't, because I always read. I would read a lot and I would watch documentaries. So to a certain degree, I was knowledge of world affairs and current events that had happened in the past to shape where we are today. So I was 14, 13. I was listening to tapes of Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, and I knew Marcus Garvey was. And of course, Dr. King. And then again, I was blessed to have a father in the home that was also somewhat aware. And so I heard about the last poets. I would listen to Gil Scott-Heron. And so these things I was already putting me at an early age before the emergence of hip hop. So I kind of had a different perspective. And when I look back on it, I think that kind of shaped my approach to school, where I was more so bored because it really wasn't speaking to anything that I felt that I saw myself in as far as, how it was being presented. And I've always felt that, we have to revise the curriculum, and we have a lot of people that are saying they want change, but they're really not ready to make the drastic changes that are needed to get the results that they say they want.
Well, then you also got to think about it, considering who it's coming from. Who does that change benefit? Do more African-American male and females who are successful, who are entrepreneurs, does that help their cause? Probably not, compared to them being on the welfare rolls, being incarcerated to where there's a
Right.
more controlling opportunity. So I think it all depends on where it comes from.
Oh, definitely. And there's money in racism.
Dang.
There's money in that. There's a lot of money in racism. And well, here's the thing too. And again, when you talk about being painted as a ultra conservative, but a life is a life, regardless of what it's taken. And I'm not here to not say, because I scream Black Lives Matter all day, every day. However, the approach that the community takes towards when a life is taken from someone that's white, not even someone of any other community, but of white or in a position of authority, it's much harsher than a life that's taken from someone with their own community. And we will say, well, because we pay our taxes, all these things are true, and all these things do not negate or marginalize it. However, there's no money in it for profiteers, for racial profiteers. And that's why you will never see them really come out and speak in the same way as if when we saw with George Floyd and we see with other individuals. Again, I'm confused as why the angst is not to the same level as Breonna Taylor. Maybe because it wasn't filmed. But again, to your point, there's money in racism. There's money in it's profiteering in this division that the media, and it's real. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say that it's not real, but there's money in it, and it's people able to profit off of it. And so hence that's why it's like that.
I won't forget that statement. You remind me of the scene in The Godfather when Sonny says there's a lot of money in that white powder, so I
yes,
won't.
exactly.
What a great transition, Dan, to economics. And in your introduction, you talked about the number of things you're involved in, not wearing one hat, but a number of things. Well, let's get into Ringo-Economics and one of your most recent ventures, along with your book, Airman to CEO, correct?
Yes.
As well as another publication you put out where you were able to capture a lot of the beautiful faces of people that were our contemporaries coming up and add some excellent quotes to those. But also when you talk about the apparel business, I was on the phone with one of my buddies. I was saying, look, man, I'm getting ready to order some shoes for my man. You know what he said? He said, they must be dope because you don't wear just anything. I said, they dope. They dope.
They're real fly. They're real fly.
What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to pull up a screen so our viewers can see what I've been looking at. You got to just excuse me for a second as I go to screen share. Because what I want to do, where's the screen at? Oh, I had it up. Give me a second.
Yeah.
I'll work on getting that. Well, what I was experiencing is that, talk about the psychology, Dan, of being able to get, let's just say it, Black people to want to support a product or a brand that is not the ones that we've been supporting over the years. That's not Gucci, Nike, Fendi, etc., but a luxury brand at that. Can you see this on your screen?
Yes, I can.
Can you?
Looks good.
He said, looks good, huh?
Looks good.
So tell people what we got up here, what we have right here.
All right, so right here you have some of the shoes that we offer through Ringo-Economics. And my favorite, really, because I love them all, but my favorite are the brown and blue. Just because, again, I'm a Wu-Tang Clan fan, so I call those the Cuban links. Because again, that's
low top.
Exactly. Yep. The Cuban links low top. Those are my favorite of all. And again, I love the colors, and this is a luxury brand. It's well made, but these are not shoes that you're going to wear every day. The Cuban links and the Ringo-Economics, definitely everyday wear, but I don't see someone wearing the blue and cream, as I call them, the orange and the blue every day. The Americana, those are special when you got your special outfit on. You want to look different. Those are not every days. The ragged Africanas, and again, the Africanas and the Americanas and the Mexicanas were all presented and rolled out before COVID hit and before the marching. So it was like, man, to have the forethought to say we're gonna name this shoe the red, black, and green Africana. was, I thought, very timely. And I had those on Juneteenth, as a matter of fact.
You know what? And that's what I'm torn. Before my first order, I'm torn between the Americaners and the Afrikaners. I'm like, how do I go back and forth? But you know what? I'm gonna have to cop both of them. That's what I'm gonna have.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. But they're all a handmade Italian leather, hand stitched, and after order they ship out within 6 to 12 days.
You know what, brother? And so talk more about, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm at a point as an entrepreneur that I can see the vision and do it. But it seems like there's such a hurdle when it comes to getting our people to buy into our stuff. I mean, let's just say if part of Detroit woke up one day and say, you know, today's Dan Ringo Day, and we're going to do what we can to support him. And what I said on a past podcast, I've seen this happen with Magic Johnson. I was at an event, and he was being honored as the speaker. And at the time, he gave away $100,000 to a group. And I was sitting next to his wife, Cookie, who's a beautiful person. I said, did you know he was going to do that? She said, he do that all the time. So here's my point. When Black businesses get support, we become more philanthropic.
Right.
You know, when you get them orders, you're more likely to do more. So my point being is something we can do. And while we're on this, I don't want to, keep going on and on. I want to make sure I connect you with Clarence Barbour, my guy, because every Friday he does a Buy Black profile, and he's really big on that. So I'm gonna make sure I link. But just give me your feedback on.
And I wanted to get to that. I want to make sure I answer that question of why. It's part of our psychology of how we started in this country and where we come from, and the self-hate that we have as Black folks in this country. It really just stems from self-hate, and that no matter how many times I wash my hands, you don't see my hands as being as clean as someone who was not Black. And I think that goes not just from apparel, goes to who we date, where we eat, where we live. It's really ingrained in us so heavily. So to that point, that's where I think it stems from, is that we don't see the value, no matter how much we scream Black and I'm proud, and we really have a self-hate, that we don't see the quality or the value in something that comes from people that look like us, unless it's already endorsed by somebody that's been endorsed by the main culture. Now, to your point, Magic Johnson, if Jay-Z or say Rick Ross or somebody was pictured in a pair of Ringo shoes with a Ringo t-shirt, I'm gone. I'm gone.
First of all, your website go crash because all the orders you go get.
Exactly.
You have to change your phone number because everybody wants to catch you.
But we don't believe in building the institutions that we will need in the future. And that's where I don't.
Wait. Stop. Hold on. Slow down. What? We don't believe in building the institutions we need in the future. What?
Exactly. So I will send you my son or daughter and say, Lindsay, can you give them a job? But I have not supported the business that put you in the position. We will not create the institutions that we need. And until we're able to do that, we're going to constantly run into that to say, listen, like you said, Magic, you hit a very excellent point. We are proven to be more philanthropic. We will give away. I haven't seen one billionaire do what Robert Smith, the billionaire, did when he said, I'm just going to pay for it. We haven't seen that in India. We do that. That's who we are. However, and then for a month or so on social media, you've seen a lot of people talking about how great Robert Smith was. They didn't know who he was before that. But spotlight, this man has continued to be who he is ever since. We are not interested in creating rich people. We love rich people. We just ain't interested in creating any.
Well, we knew that Phil Knight owns Nike.
Yes.
We know that Michael Jordan owns the Jordan brand, and we line up for that. So does that speak to your point about that third-party endorsement, that because Jordan is a Nike brand, or we're okay with making Phil Knight a billionaire over billionaire over billionaire?
Oh, we don't have any problem if it's somebody that's white. We begin because we believe that that's a superior product. And Michael Jordan was already Michael Jordan when he did the Jumpman. When he made the switch to Jumpman, it was already Michael Jordan. If you have a platform that's endorsed by the mainstream culture, you will be able to make more money, if that's your goal.
What does it take to get that? What is it? And I know you're gonna go, but what does it take to get that mainstream endorsement? And is that mainstream endorsement an end game?
No. You know what? I can't speak for me. I can speak for me. It's not for me. I feel that, again, I have a superior product. I feel that it's going to attract those that it's meant to attract. And I think those who get it will appreciate it. And that is my end game. Again, that's why the shoes are not, a different price, because again, for those that get it, will get it and appreciate it. And those that don't, that's okay too. I think that as I continue to progress as an entrepreneur and push on different things that I'm trying to push on, it's going to help this platform. And it's something that, again, trademark that I own, that from a legacy piece, I can pass on. One thing that really impressed me or I felt great about is that I was at a family get together, and a cousin of mine that's like an auntie / mother cousin, she said, boy, you've created a whole platform for Ringos. And that meant the world to me.
Wow.
That, her husband, the name, exactly. So when people buy the products, or when people overseas buy my books, and I've sold books on every continent, on the planet, for somebody to say, man, to have that book in their house, say Dan Ringo, to know that is something, again, coming from my background, like you said, playing 21 on bullet written backboard.
Bullets on the back, bullets in the backboard, baby.
Exactly. That's and again, it's not being afraid to fail. So I had a conversation earlier about Kanye West running for president with someone.
Oh, wow.
I explained to them that you have to understand this man is a billionaire. And his mentality, you don't become a billionaire by really worrying about the opinions of other people.
No.
Not starting off on the south side of Chicago. No. So the opinions of many people, sometimes you have to do things to let people catch up. The whole thing with Ringo-Economics, to me, was something that I knew a lot of people wouldn't get, but eventually the people will catch up, and it may not catch up in this lifetime. This may be something that's pulled from the dirt of some place 200 years ago, and it may find a whole new country or civilization that people may flip through and go, because of this law right here. Right. This is what we're going to do. So
I got a question for you, but before that, I do want to go. When I saw that name, Ringo-Economics, I was like, I knew it was a game changer, because I said, I know Dan, I know where you're going with this, because you're just saying, I'm telling you, it's about the money. It's about the mindset of finances. So I got a question for you that's almost, there's not many people I can ask this question as it relates to Black entrepreneurs. But is there, I could be where I'm asking, I don't have an answer to this, but is there a level of sacrifice we have to make as Black entrepreneurs? And if so, to what degree, as it relates to how we have to be different from mainstream entrepreneurs? And what I mean by that, how much a break do we give the other community? How much a break do we give our community? I mean, it's like, as a Black businessman, what's the different rules that we play by, or should there be any different rules? Because I don't have an answer. I'm just asking this question on a wide platform.
You know what Jay-Z said on 444, we have to create a society within society. And I believe that society that you create, because the thing that when Jay-Z said that, I tell people, as much as I love the saying, he wasn't talking about Dan Ringo or Lindsey Huddleston. He was talking about his team. He was talking about create a society within society with his people, with Puffy, and with the people you see on the Rock Nation brunches. Those are the people he's talking to. We have to learn to create, Dan, Lindsey, Joe. We have to look at how do we create a society within society and come up with our own little Cosa Nostra. What are the rules and things that we're going to abide by? Because every community does this, and every community has their rules, and it's not for you to know, it's for them to know. But I think the level of sacrifice is I won't say any, because at that level, it's not going to be based upon race on your level of sacrifice. I really do think it's just a sacrifice of the grind and what you're willing to what are you willing to put at risk to achieve that goal? And that sounds very harsh, but I've put marriage, I've put kids, and I paid for that. And I'm still paying for that to a certain degree. And it wasn't until I had a great conversation with my son a few weeks ago. And again, I was teared up, man. I had dropped a few tears, and because I feel like, man, I've accomplished all these things. I've done all these things. I'm your father. I'm thinking you will be proud. And he was like, we was proud of you in the boiler room. And I said, man, I missed something. And I had to admit that the thing that men tell themselves, or people, I won't say men, but I'm speaking from a man's perspective, that we tell ourselves that we do this for our family. It could be true, but sometimes we have to admit that we're doing this to self-serve, a narcissistic, egotistical portion of ourselves, which is healthy if we acknowledge it as such. But if we continue to deflect and say, I'm doing this as some type of moral high horse, I did this for you. You got this because of what I did, and you should appreciate me. It's like, hey, we didn't ask you for that.
Well, Dan, excellent point. Family is a fail-safe. In politics, when people want to get out, what they say, I want to spend more time with my family.
Exactly.
If you want to leave a job, that's always a fail-safe, and that's become a safe way for us to cover. When the decisions I did make for myself in the name of my family. So you make a good point. And one other thing I want to say about the mental health aspect of the entrepreneur, I just had to come to the conclusion that my work, and you touched on it, is for the party of the willing. My work and what I do, like even with my new book, and I know you experienced that with having a book. This is my second book, but I've grown so much. I said, it's not about me selling my book to everybody in the world. It's about making sure the people who want my book get it.
Exactly.
So talk about that statement, what that means to you.
So again, you know, I've written, you know, a lot of technical manuals as well. And in the book, my reviews for the Airman and CEO, first of all, when I wrote the book, I didn't want to write the book as if I was an English professor. I wanted to write the book in a conversational manner, like I was talking to someone. And I wanted it to flow. I wanted it to be a short read. But some of the most gratifying professional moments, and I'll say even personal too, is that when someone has read my book that I have never met and will never meet personally, and they've said how much it has helped them. You know, when I've been asked to come across the country and speak to groups of people about my journey because it resonates, it's not going to resonate with everyone. It's not going to resonate with everyone that had a similar path, but it was going to resonate for those. The world is a big place. And I thank God it's a big place, because many times people base their success or their decision to get started on a successful path based upon the people they know. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. If you base it on the people you know and not realize how big the world is, you're missing a whole lot. And so that's something I got over really quick, was looking at the circle I know and knowing that it's much more out here, because I've been in so many different circles that I know the world is bigger than the circle that I'm in. So you have to put things outside of the circle, which is outside of your comfort zone, and let it be judged. Many people can't be criticized, but if you're not ready for criticism, you're not ready for success.
You're not. Let me ask you this, on that same note, I mean, my goodness, and staying with the theme of mental health, because, you know, our love of sports, and I do want to talk about you being a boxing aficionado, boy, because you get going on for boxing. We'll touch on that.
Yes.
But staying with mental health, how important or unimportant is validation on your entrepreneurial journey?
And I was talking about mental health today, knowing that we had this conversation scheduled, but I was talking with a young man who just recently got married, and his wife is very successful. So her trajectory is strong, and he is concerned about his path. And I said, let me tell you this, I have to give myself pep talks all the time for my mental health. I have to reaffirm and remind myself of where I'm going, who I am, where I've been. And again, if it's not, everything will be fine in the end. And if it's not fine, it's not the end. So you cannot worry. Worry has never done.
Stop. Lunchroom. Go back. Bring it back. Take it back again. What'd you just say?
Everything will be fine in the end. And if it's not fine, it's not the end. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. Endings are nothing but prequels to new beginnings. Everything has to end for something to begin. So if you're concerned about where you are right now, okay, know that what you're going through has to end in order for you to get to where you're going next. The thing is to be in the right mindset and to reaffirm that, listen, I have survived everything I've ever been through. I have survived it. Everything that I know about that I've ever been through, I have survived it. I have been divorced twice. This is my third marriage. Okay. I had to mentally say, okay, I've had a business fail. I had a contract, a multi-million-dollar contract that I was going to be awarded 2 days before it was going to be awarded. $80 million contract in Chicago. They told me, sorry, Mr. Ringo, we rescind our offer. Okay.
So you had to send the jet back. You had the jet you had. You about to pipe at.
Do you know how much? Listen. Do you know how much money was already spent? Come on now, listen. Do you know how much money was already spent? I had this contract. This contract was in the bag. Listen, your viewers, all they got to do is go to Chicago Sun-Times, type in Ringo service, Ringo LGC. Okay, January 2017. $80 million contract 2 days before the board is to hit the gavel. I've already got the letter. I've had the letter for 6 weeks saying you have been awarded. And then to get that. So when you start talking about mental health and protecting your mental health, I've had thoughts.
How'd you come out of that, Dan? Because I see you where you are now. How did you come out of that?
You know what? It's multi-layered. Number one is my faith in God. Number two, I'll say, is my wife. I have a wonderful wife who's a very strong person that has kept my strength.
I haven't met your wife, but her profile is strong, brother.
Yeah, she's an amazing person. And number three, I know how real I am as a person. And to me, I felt as if I can celebrate the good, then I have an obligation to continue through the bad. Because again, it is what it is. Just because it's happening to you doesn't make it any less real or any more real. It's just your turn.
So when that next $100 million deal is up, you're not gonna mentally spend that money until you got it.
Oh, no. But I tell you, it was fun. I got memories. if that's worth anything, I got some memories. Man.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, what I like to do, and I do this for the best of my podcast, they're all great, but I want to wrap it up only because I want people to look at the time and say, okay, I'm going to jump into this and get it. It's some good stuff. Considering this is SPS, Sports Psychology Solutions, and you have such a love for boxing, probably on my social media, you're probably the most detailed person when it comes to boxing. I got a boxing lineage. My great-great-uncle, Uncle John Summerlin, sparred with Joe Louis, which led to my mother, Patricia England, being at the front row. She was at Madison Square Garden when that scene in American Gangster where he had the chinchilla on. She said, I saw him in that. She would always go to the fight. So my mom's always had that love for boxing. So talk about your appreciation for boxing, because I know that whenever there's a comment made on boxing, you don't play, man. You don't play with your comments. I mean, it's almost like you got to revere that. Where did that love come? Why is that so important? And as we wrap up, how can boxing and the technicality of that be a good way to help us through our daily lives too?
Let me just quickly say, of all the interviews, I've done tons of interviews. That is the greatest question I've ever been asked. I feel like a politician. I actually mean this when I say thank you for that question.
Thank you for that question. Okay, good.
Listen, my father was a boxing fan, and I was a daddy's boy. So I've been watching boxing for 40-something years, and boxing is a sport, whereas it's the only sport you don't play. Okay, there's no timeouts. Although you have to fight until that bell rings, and you have to protect yourself at all times. Think about life. You have to protect yourself at all times, and you got to keep punching until the bell ring. And the main bell is when your time is up. So you got to guard yourself, and you got to be able to move, bob, and weave, because life is going to come at you from different angles. And again, it's a sport that it's you against your opponent. That's the main thing. And it's nothing greater. No other sport allows the athlete to talk about themselves in a manner in which they truly want to talk.
Right.
You know, in every other sport, you have individuals that have to say things that really don't mean, like, we really truly respect our opponent. In boxing, you get to say, listen, I'm coming in for the title. I'm coming in to do, and that's the mentality that you have to have towards life. And you have to go into it until the last round. And so that's why I love boxing so much. And again, just the different personalities, the different characters, and just how you get knocked down, you have to get back up. And just the adversity that champions demonstrate is a mentality that you definitely need to bring and adopt to your everyday life.
So even if one doesn't like the physicality, the violence of it, there's still so many great principles that can be taken from boxing.
Exactly. And I would say then you could really get caught up in the beauty of a Floyd Mayweather or of a Pernell Whitaker, those who were able to stand in that ring and not get hit. Okay. And again, and their defense was more offense. It's a flow to a very great prize fighter that you can appreciate, like you like dance. You know, the way they move, the way in which they can avoid, the way they can stand in front of someone. Because when people say a boxer is running, trust me, they can't go anywhere. It's a ring. So they're not running but so far. So they have to, it's footwork.
Right.
And I think that, again, as I have conversations with individuals, I had a good friend of mine call me today to talk business. And this was someone who, again, he looks up to me, but in our beginning of our relationship, I looked up to him, and I still look up to him. But this is someone who, again, we're talking about strategy. We're talking about maneuvering. You can't always go in and swing it with both fists in the beginning of the round. You have to learn finesse. You have to learn how to move. And I think even in your personal relationships, you have to feel your mate, your wife, your spouse. You have to see how are they feeling today? How are they looking at this situation? So therefore I can position myself to bolster both our positions and move forward. Wow. So it's things in boxing that I adapt in my everyday life. And not always.
Please, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And not always the perfect execution, but the principles still apply.
I'm glad I asked the question. I'm glad you gave me that response, because what you've helped me with on the personal note, as much as I can put on the TV, and my daughter and I, at 8 years old, she'll watch basketball and she'll tell me, what team you like, Daddy? I say, I like that team. She'll root for the other one. But I cannot pass boxing or UFC without her saying, let's watch that. So now that you've given me, I'm telling you, man, so now that you've given me that, the next time it's on, I'm going to start dissecting that with her more and say, baby, what do you see? What do you see him doing? Because we, as a dad, I want my daughter to be able to protect herself when them girls try to run around her.
Exactly.
But what I take, so this is going full circle, brother. From the bullets in the backboard to begging on the lunchroom table to now me still learning from you going forward. That's what I'm not going to do. So as I wrap up, I want you to have the last word. But, the accolades can go on, but I just really think that people who are going to listen to this and hear this, who are craving some next level information, will benefit from it greatly. If it ain't for everybody, so be it. We ain't out here for everybody. We out to get the people who need what they want. So I want to thank you for coming on. And ladies and gentlemen, the last voice you're going to hear on this podcast is going to be Mr. Dan Ringo. So with that, I'll let you close us out.
Oh, thank you. And I thank you for having me. It's been always a pleasure. If you ever need, I definitely would love to be back. However, I'll say, you can find me at Ringo-Economics.com, and that's Ringo-Nomics.com, or Opus at weareopus.com, but Ringo-Nomics.com for the apparel as well as the literature.
Great. I appreciate you, brother. I love you much, and we're going to see each other on the
too, brother.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.